This is the complete masterclass on carbohydrates, and by the end of it, you'll understand the difference between total carbs and net carbs better than most dietitians will ever explain it to you. Carbohydrates are one of the three macronutrients your body uses for fuel, alongside protein and fat. They show up in fruits, vegetables, grains, dairy, and yes, in that protein bar you've been told is perfectly fine for your diet. But here's where things get complicated. There are two ways to count carbs, and depending on which method you follow, that protein bar might contain 21 grams of carbs or just 4. That's not a rounding error. That's a fundamentally different way of understanding what food does inside your body. So let's break it down. Total carbohydrates are exactly what they sound like. It's the sum of everything. Sugars, starches, fiber, sugar alcohols, all of it added together. This is the number you see on the nutrition facts label, and it's the only carbohydrate value officially recognized by the FDA. When the federal government talks about carbs, this is what they mean. The Institute of Medicine recommends carbohydrates make up 45 to 65% of your total daily calories. On a 2,000-calorie diet, that translates to between 225 and 325 grams of carbs per day. Now, net carbs. This is where it gets interesting and a little controversial. Net carbs equal total carbs minus fiber minus certain sugar alcohols. The idea is simple. If a component of your food passes through your body without significantly raising blood sugar, why count it? And that logic is not entirely wrong, but it is not entirely right either. The concept of net carbs did not come from a laboratory or a government agency. It came from a book. In 2002, Dr. Robert Atkins introduced the term in his updated edition of Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution, a book that stayed on the bestseller list for 285 weeks and became the #1 best-selling Avon paperback of all time. The idea was based on emerging research showing that dietary fiber has a minimal impact on blood sugar. So Atkins argued, subtract it, count only what matters, and the food industry listened. Almost immediately, manufacturers started slapping terms like net carbs, active carbs, and impact carbs on packaging. It was a marketing goldmine. Suddenly, products with high total carb counts could be rebranded as low-carb friendly. Dessert-style snacks, protein bars, candy alternatives, all technically compliant with low-carb diets if you just did the math the right way. But here is the thing the FDA and the American Diabetes Association want you to know. Net carbs is not a legally defined term. It has no regulatory definition. The ADA does not recognize it, and at their own 2022 scientific sessions, a diabetes care specialist concluded that the evidence does not support counting net carbs and recommended that people with diabetes use total carbs instead while monitoring their individual glucose response. Dr. Wahida Karmali, Director of Nutrition at the Irving Center for Clinical Research at Columbia University, put it bluntly, quote, "These terms have been made up by food companies. So who is right? The answer requires understanding fiber and sugar alcohols individually. Let's start with fiber. There are two types. Soluble fiber dissolves in water, forming a gel-like substance that slows digestion and delays sugar absorption into the bloodstream. Over time, it can actually reduce HbA1c levels. Insoluble fiber doesn't dissolve. It adds bulk, speeds transit through the gut, and while it's essential for digestive health, it doesn't significantly influence blood sugar. The recommended ratio is 2:1, insoluble to soluble. If you're aiming for 30 grams a day, that's 20 grams insoluble, 10 grams soluble. And almost nobody hits that target. Studies show only about 5% of American adults get enough fiber. 90% of women and 97% of men fall short. The average American consumes roughly 15 to 16 grams per day. The recommendation is from 22 to 34 grams, depending on age and sex. Now here's the nuance that net carb math ignores. A 2009 review confirmed that fiber does help modulate glucose response, but the effect is dose-dependent and varies by fiber type. Subtracting all fiber universally, as the net carb equation does, oversimplifies that relationship, and some companies have figured out how to exploit this. They add fiber into processed products to lower the net carb count on the label. But if those products already contained ingredients that spike blood sugar, the added fiber doesn't cancel that effect. It's an accounting trick, not a metabolic one. Now, sugar alcohols. This is where most people get into trouble. Sugar alcohols are not all created equal, and treating them as interchangeable is one of the biggest mistakes in low-carb dieting. Erythritol has a glycemic index of 0. It provides just 0.2 calories per gram. About 90% of it gets absorbed in the small intestine and excreted unchanged in urine. It essentially passes through you, so subtracting 100% of erythritol from your carb count is reasonable. Xylitol has a glycemic index of 7. It is roughly as sweet as sugar and is well established as diabetic friendly. Subtracting about 50% of xylitol is the standard recommendation. But maltitol has a glycemic index of 35. That is roughly half of table sugar, but dramatically higher than other sugar alcohols. Many products marketed as keto-friendly use maltitol because it is cheaper than erythritol and behaves like sugar in manufacturing. If you are subtracting all sugar alcohols from your carb count and the product uses maltitol, you are lying to yourself. For keto calculations, maltitol should be treated as a full carbohydrate, and there is a newer concern. Recent research has found that circulating levels of both erythritol and xylitol are associated with an increased risk for major adverse cardiovascular events, including heart attack, stroke, and death. Now, association does not equal causation, and pilot trials suggest the mechanism may involve temporary changes in platelet aggregation. Studies on critically ill patients receiving large intravenous doses and Mendelian randomization trials have not linked sugar alcohols to significant cardiovascular risks, but it is worth watching. Here's something you probably haven't heard before. There's a category of carbohydrate that doesn't fit neatly into either camp. Resistant starch. It's a type of starch that resists digestion, passes through the small intestine mostly intact, and behaves more like fiber than like a typical carbohydrate. The European Union officially classifies it as dietary fiber, and the European Food Safety Authority has approved the health claim that replacing digestible starch with resistant starch induces a lower blood glucose rise after a meal. Research shows that consuming 15 to 60 grams of resistant starch per day can lower insulin levels after meals and increase insulin sensitivity over time. Just 10 grams per day was enough to lower fasting insulin levels. And here's the practical trick. Cooking and then cooling starchy foods like rice, potatoes, pasta, and oatmeal increases their resistant starch content. A cold potato salad is metabolically different from a hot baked potato. For those following ketogenic diets, the carb question becomes even more personal. Traditional guidelines suggest staying below 20 to 50 grams of net carbs daily. Below 20 grams guarantees ketosis in roughly 95% of people. But a 2026 study using continuous ketone monitoring found that actual ketosis thresholds are much higher than previously thought, averaging 93 grams for women and 105 grams for men. The traditional keto carb limit may be unnecessarily conservative for many people. So what's the bottom line? If you're generally healthy and trying to eat well, total carbs give you the complete picture. If you're following a specific low-carb protocol and you understand the differences between fiber types and sugar alcohols, net carbs can be a useful tool, but only if you apply it correctly. That means knowing what kind of fiber you're eating, knowing which sugar alcohol is in your food, and never assuming that a label telling you 4 net carbs means the same thing as 4 grams of actual carbohydrate impact. If understanding the real math behind total carbs, fiber, and sugar alcohols gave you a clearer picture than the label on your food ever could, hit that like button. It helps this channel keep breaking down the science nobody else explains properly. And if you want more deep dives that cut through food industry marketing, subscribe so the next one lands right in your feed.